Welcome to Pastor's Chat,
Yes,
Coley and Tonks.
Good to be back for another week.
Great to have you here.
Yeah.
And we've been going through the Bible, having a bit of focus on the Bible. So
Yeah.
Like a couple pastors to be able to do that, I think. And
You'd hope so.
Yeah, that's it.
You'd certainly hope so.
we're not talking about our favourite Bible stories today, though.
No.
We're talking, there's some pretty weird stuff in the Bible.
There's a lot of really strange stories in the Bible,
It's not
isn't
just a really nice, cute book that just has some nice stories
No.
about meek and mild Jesus sort of thing. But
there? No. There's
It's a
some
book
fairly bloodthirsty stories and just weird
I'd
stories.
put it on page with things like Game of Thrones or a lot of that like Roman sort of stuff.
It'd be pretty true if they did a really accurate TV series based on the Old Testament.
Yeah.
It'd have to be R-rated. Like if they did it
easily,
sort of word for word
Yeah.
with all those stories.
Oh, the amount of stuff in it, and it probably shows a bit of the culture that they lived in, which you do see in a lot of those medieval times, and
Yeah.
even pre-medieval, but
Yeah.
Roman Empire times, and
But
you get a
sort of-
glimpse of that.
Yeah, but sometimes when you do come across, maybe you've come across one of those weird stories, like something that's really bloodthirsty or violent or even like quite sexy in places. It can leave you scratching your head thinking, what in the world? Why is that in the Bible?
Yeah,
For what purpose would that story
right.
be there? And so we've dug out a few of our kind of favourite,
That's it.
unusual, weird stories, and going to just give a few comments on it and maybe help address that. Why are some of these stories in the Bible?
That's right. You want to kick us off? What do you
Yeah,
got?
all right. I'm going to put my old man eyes on. I've got the first one is from Judges chapter 3.
Oh, Judges is full of great stuff. isn't
Well, we could have just spent the whole thing
Yeah.
on Judges, couldn't we? But this is like about 10 verses. Let me read it to you. It's a pretty awesome story. So it says, Again the Israelites cried out to the Lord, and he gave them a deliverer, Ehud, a left-handed man, the son of Jerah the Benjamite. The Israelites sent him with tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now, Ehud had made a double-edged sword about a cubit long, a pretty big sword, which he strapped to his right thigh under his clothing. He presented the tribute to Eglon, king of Moab, who was a very fat man. After Ehud had presented the tribute, he sent on their way those who had carried it. But on reaching the stone images near Gilgal, he himself went back to Eglon and said, Your Majesty, I have a secret message for you. The king said to his attendants, Leave us, and they all left. Now Ehud then approached him while he was sitting alone in the upper room of his palace and said, I have a message from God for you. And as the king rose from his seat, Ehud reached with his left hand, drew the sword from his right thigh, and plunged it into the king's belly. Even the handle sank in after the blade, and his bowels discharged.
Imagine that on the screen.
Yeah. Ehud did not pull the sword out, and the fat closed in over it. Then Ehud went out to the porch, shut the doors of the upper room behind him, and locked them.
That's pretty good, isn't
I
it?
always think when that was one of those stories that I found as a very, very young Christian. And it was kind of like, my eyes were just like, what in the
Imagine
world?
filming that story. That'd be unreal.
Yeah.
We skipped that one at Sunday school.
It's not. There's no colouring in pages with
the sword
big
going
fat
through.
king with his guts all over the floor.
Funny stories at the start. You're like, it's a bit random that they're calling him fat, and then you see it's actually quite important to the story. Really.
Yeah.
It's just.
But to me, that was one of those stories. Now, this is kind of sound a little bit strange, and maybe there's a number of people, maybe you feel this at times. The Bible can be a bit dry. There's certain passages of the Bible, and you look and think, man, this is like really boring, or this is, what's this got to do with us today, sort of thing. But when I came across that story as a young guy, probably about 14, 15-year-old young Christian, I opened my eyes thinking, man, the Bible's actually really exciting.
Yeah.
And so I actually went to school and I was telling some of my friends that story and a few of the other ones, the story about with Deborah and put the tent peg through the guy's head and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And even my mates at the time, not Christians at all, was kind of like, what? That's in the Bible? Are you serious?
Yeah.
And it sort of creates a bit of a desire. Well, what else is there? What other exciting
Was it Judges
stories?
as well? They dropped the rock on the guy's head from the top of the tower, and it's just
so many weird
it's incredible.
stories like that.
Samson killing an army with the jawbone of a donkey, just unreal.
So story after story after story at times, which as a young Christian, maybe young Christian male that was into sort of action movies,
That's right.
Indiana Jones and stuff, they say that the Bible was just chockers.
I know some people say that
exciting.
the gospel marks the action gospel. If you like action
Yeah.
movies, you got to go to Judges before you go. It's like incredible. So much stuff there.
Yeah, so maybe it might help you to see that the Bible's not just lists of laws and lists of rules or lists of big, long, endless names and genealogies, but there are some really, truly exciting, action-packed stories
That's
that
right.
sometimes will leave us still scratching our head about how violent they are or something, but they'll certainly keep you on the edge of the seat.
That's right.
You got your first
I've
one.
got a short one, and this is about Elisha the prophet. So Elisha, not Elijah, so with the SH. Both of mine are about prophets actually, and they were in the time of the prophets, and there's some interesting stories with the prophets. But this, I just love this one, it's a simple one. You'll find this in 2 Kings chapter 2, verses 23 to 25. Kings got some good stories here too, actually. From there, Elisha went up to Bethel, and as he was walking along the road, some boys came to him out of town and jeered at him. "Get out of here, Baldy," because he obviously had no hair. They said, "Get out of here, Baldy." He turned around, looked at them, and called a curse on them in the name of the Lord. Then 2 bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the boys. And he went out to Mount Carmel, and from there returned to Samaria. It's at youth group when we've seen kids picking on an old guy, I don't know. I've never seen some bears come out and maul them, or it's a fascinating story, isn't it? So, man of God, and then he said, "In the name of the Lord." And I'm sure there's been times where we've been bullied and we've said, "Lord, do something to those bullies." That's not one that we get in there. It's a crazy story.
It's like for the bears to come out and maul 42 of these, teenagers maybe, teenage boys.
Yeah, you'd think
all
so.
That causing trouble.
Yeah. And did he just sit back and laugh while they mauled the boys, or like it's another one of those ones you put yourself into that story.
But it really does bring in a lot of stuff around honour, though, doesn't it?
I think so.
Story.
Elijah was the man of God, and there was a time when a lot of people were mocking God and they didn't see the Israelites or anyone that followed the Lord with any sort of respect or honour. So it was a time, where violence was more appropriate. So in that culture, it was life and death, and these people that just showed no respect for God, no respect for His people, were taught that honour is valuable. In an age of prophet and kings, honour is everything back then.
And we're certainly not expecting that as ministers or the elders of our church or some of our older men and women in the church, if we disrespect them, I don't think any of them are going to be calling out curses and hoping that
I don't think so.
Crocodile leaps out of the Murray River and swallows the youth group or anything like that. But it does remind us that we do need to honour those who have gone before us, those in positions of authority within the church, those who perhaps our elders, the older members who have just paved the way for us. So honour, respect.
Don't pick on your bald mates either. But honour is huge. So that was
great
one
story.
of mine.
I've got another one here. This is from 1 Samuel to do with David. And again, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1st, 2nd Kings, Judges, Joshua. These sort of narrative books are chock full of so many wonderful stories. And like the life of David, right from his calling, David and Goliath, on the hunt from
David's
Saul.
life is after Goliath sometimes.
So this is a pretty awesome one. So this is from 1 Samuel chapter 18. Now, it says, "Now Saul's daughter Michal was in love with David.
I love this one.
And when they told Saul about it, he was pleased. I will give her to him, he thought, so that she may be a snare to him, so that the hand of the Philistines may be against him." So Saul's going to use his own daughter to sort of like trap David. So Saul replied, "Say to David, the king wants no other price for the bride than 100 Philistine foreskins to take revenge." Yep.
Foreskins.
100 Philistine foreskins to take revenge on his enemies. But Saul's plan was to have David fall by the hands of the Philistines. So, no, he's going to go out, got to kill all these.
Oh, nasty, the Philistines.
Well, have a look what happens next. When the attendants told David these things, he was pleased to become the king's son-in-law. So before the allotted time elapsed, David took his men with him, and they went out and killed 200 Philistines and brought back their foreskins. They counted out the full number to the king so that David might become the king's son-in-law. Then Saul gave his daughter Michal in marriage.
Wow.
That's a bit weird, isn't it? I'm sure that when you had kind of wanted to marry Elise, and I know for sure when I wanted to marry Kylie, if the price was go out and get 100 foreskins, you might have had second thoughts.
Yeah, unless you could get them on eBay or something, I wouldn't have been considering that. Just a little bit. Imagine killing someone too, and then you've done the hard work, and they tell you to go and take their foreskins off the army.
I know. But then not just to do 100, but he bought back
doubled up
200.
Yeah,
so he went way beyond the expectation.
That's it.
Now, when I was probably about 18 or 19, I actually read that story as a communion story
Wow.
at my church
There you
down in Ballarat, and had quite a few of the older ladies in the church were just about ready to faint, and one of them actually came up to me after the service and said, "Well, Andrew, you had me very worried with that story, but what I tied it in with was that David was given to prove his love, to prove that he wanted to win the heart of Michael. He had to go out and get 100 foreskins. Obviously, Saul's trying to. Well, he's hoping that he's going to fall in that attack, that David's going to die. But not only does David do the 100, he brings back 200. He went far beyond the expectation to prove and win his love. And I liken that to Jesus, because there's a lot about David that foreshadows Jesus. And, we call Jesus the son of David. So there's a lot of foreshadowing of the Messiah. And we can really see that Jesus didn't just do the minimum to win us. He went far beyond and gave his absolute all for us, by giving it all onto the cross. So we can see through a pretty weird story,
it's powerful.
Perhaps a lovely illustration of the extent of God's love for each of us.
That's it. It's, And if you mate, some people I think get shocked by these stories. It's a good revealer for whether they've actually read their whole Bible or not. It's always good. Haven't you heard that one?
Yeah.
That's great.
Maybe for some today, that's the first time you've heard some of these stories or that one there.
I've been going through Isaiah this month, and there was one that I think I have read this before, but there was one I just read through and I went, hang on, I had to read it 2 or 3 times. I was like, that's right, I remember hearing about this, or I think last time I read it too, I stopped and remembered this. But in Isaiah, from Isaiah 20, and it's right from the start, we'll go from verse 1. In the year that the supreme commander, sent by Sargon, king of Assyria, came to Ashdod and attacked and captured it. At that time, the Lord spoke through Isaiah, son of Amoz. So there was another prophet that the Lord spoke through. He said to him, take off the sackcloth from your body and the sandals of your feet. And he did so, going around stripped and barefoot. So stripped and barefoot, that's naked. Then the Lord said, just as my servant Isaiah has gone stripped and barefoot for 3 years as a sign to the portent against Egypt and Cush, so the king of Assyria will lead away stripped and barefoot the Egyptian captives and Cushite exiles, young and old, with buttocks bared to Egypt's shame. You can see there's obviously a bit of also symbolism God wanted to present through that. But I see that more as a sign of obedience, because I don't know if you'd want me preaching nude.
No, be grateful, church. Be very grateful that we don't get that calling these days.
Imagine if God called us to preach nude for the next 3 years. Like,
we'd be in permanent lockdown. There'd be no one ever here at church.
It'd be, you have to have R-rated YouTube footage, and it ended up being on a different channel and all of this. But it's just fascinating how far Isaiah was committed to go for that, and would have at least got attention. Someone's, you think about those street preachers that we walk past sometimes. You don't see them often nowadays, but if you saw a street preacher naked proclaiming the Lord, it'd probably be, you may question his
you'd remember it.
But you'd remember it. You'd probably look twice maybe, just thinking, did I just see that? But just the obedience that Isaiah showed there. And it is a good question to ask, how far am I willing to go for what the Lord calls us to do?
I don't think God would ever call someone to go around naked, but maybe might, as simple as saying, hey, go across the road and talk to your neighbour about me.
Yeah, I think culturally it's obviously things are a bit more acceptable and less acceptable. Like nudity was probably not as, although it was still pretty weird back then. Yeah. But I don't think it was quite as bizarre as if you walk past someone naked nowadays. I'm glad it was in the Middle East or up in the Syria region.
Warm areas.
Yeah, much warmer. You couldn't do that.
I wouldn't have done it when I was in Tassie.
No. Anything south of Mildura, really. Like, you wouldn't want to be doing any of that. But now these are all these Bible passages as well. They're not prescriptive, are they?
No, well, they are a narrative. They're telling the story.
Some people get a bit confused at that when you come through. Like, this doesn't mean go out and preach naked.
No, it's not go out and get foreskins before you get married.
Descriptions, descriptive parts of the Bible that obviously pack a different, like you said, the gospel.
Yeah, and ancient stories from like 2,000-3,000 years ago. But it certainly shows the Bible is a very, very interesting book.
Interesting, fascinating. If you've been getting a bit bored at just looking at some great parts of the New Testament, maybe jump into the Old Testament and have a look at just the action-packed stories, the interesting stuff.
I'd probably recommend like Genesis, Exodus. Things get a little bit bogged down as you start to get into Leviticus and Numbers, Deuteronomy, a lot of the laws and things, but get back into Judges, Joshua, 1st, 2nd Samuel, 1st, 2nd Kings, Ruth. I mean, that's a beautiful love story.
Exactly.
Action. Wars, mystery, almost like some of them turn out to be murder mystery thrillers almost, and
That's it.
the beautiful poetry of
it.
Psalms and so on. So the Bible is just the diversity within it is just amazing.
Just incredible amounts of stuff in there, and just incredible, like you say, range of things. So.
And we'd really value it if you would read your Bible, come across some of these really odd stories, and then come and ask either. Say, hey, what in the world is this all about? Why would God command this, or why would this story have happened? Or we'd love to be able to talk with you more about it. So instead of just ignoring, because I think that's what some people do, get one of these stories and go, well, forget
I'm not
that.
reading that part again.
But actually come and ask a question so you can get within that bigger picture
Exactly.
of what's really going on.
Part of the wrestle you want to have with God's word.
Yeah.
You want to wonder, why is that there? What do I need to take from this?
Yep.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, so.
Thanks for joining us. Drop a line in. What do you think's the weirdest Bible story you've ever read?
Yeah, we'd love to
What
see
are your
what some of
challenging
the
things?
ones are.
What are your favourite stories or favourite weird stories of the Bible? We'd love to hear what you've got to say.
Yeah,
Drop us
absolutely.
some comments, and we'd love to keep chatting about it.
For sure. And read your Bible.
That's it.
Brilliant.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, see you again.